We're learning more about the death of a 19-year-old.
Newport News police say Nevea Harris died last Tuesday, shot to death in an apartment on Warwick Boulevard. Court documents show what police say led up to Harris's death. These are the Brennan Point Apartments in Newport News. It's the address where court records show 19-year-old Nevea Harris was shot. Newport News Juvenile and Domestic Relations court records show 21-year-old Kanye Smith is accused of Harris's death. A criminal complaint from Newport News police say they got a call on November 11th for reports of a shooting. Police say they found Harris in the doorway of the Brennan Point Apartments, and shortly after getting there, Newport News Fire Department medics said Harris passed away.
Nevea Harris, 19 years old, mother of 2 baby boys. November 11th, she's at her boyfriend's mother's apartment. They arguing. She grabs her sons, heads for the door. A gunshot rings out. She drops right there in the doorway. He runs. But let me tell you something. This wasn't the first time he put his hands on her. Step into grave kisses, where the shadows whisper, and the secrets the world tried to bury scream to be heard. This isn't just true crime. This is truth with teeth. Stories that sting. Cases that crawl under your skin. Names that refuse to stay forgotten. We don't chase headlines, we chase ghosts. Because here, every story deserves one last heartbeat. So if you're the kind who can't look away, who wants to know what really happened, who believes every story deserves its voice, this is where you belong. Hit subscribe, stay close, because the truth doesn't rest easy, and neither do we. Nevea Harris was just 19 years old when her life ended in that doorway. 19. She had a 7-month-old son and a 1-year-old son, 2 babies who needed their mama. And the people who knew her, they'll tell you she had this sweet, caring nature about her. There was an innocence to Nevea, the kind of young woman who was trying to figure out motherhood, trying to do right by her boys, trying to navigate life. But she was also navigating something else, a relationship with 21-year-old Kanye Smith. Now, here's what we know about Kanye Smith and Nevea Harris. This wasn't some new situation. They had history. Back in April of that same year, Kanye Smith was arrested. The charge? Domestic assault against Nevea Harris. Let that sit with you for a second. April. He was arrested for putting his hands on her, and now we're in November, and she's still dealing with him. We've seen this before, right? Like, how many times have we watched this same story play out? A woman gets hurt. He gets arrested. Maybe he apologizes. Maybe he cries. Maybe he promises it'll never happen again. And she believes him. Or maybe she doesn't believe him, but she's got 2 babies and she's 19 and life is complicated and leaving isn't as simple as people think it is. So by November, Nevea is still connected to Kanye Smith, still in his life, still dealing with whatever that relationship was. November 11th, a Tuesday. But we're not talking about Tuesday afternoon. We're talking about 35 inches the morning. That cold, quiet time when most people are asleep, when the world feels still. When trouble happens and nobody sees it coming. Nevea is at an apartment on Warwick Boulevard in Newport News, Virginia. The Brennan Point Apartments. But it's not her apartment. It's Kanye Smith's mother's apartment, his mama's place. And Nevea is there with Kanye and with her 2 sons. Now, we don't know what time they got there. We don't know if they were visiting or if this was where they were staying. What we do know is that at some point that early morning, things started going left. An argument broke out between Nevea and Kanye. We don't know what it was about. We don't know who said what first. But we know it escalated. And Nevea made a decision. She decided she was done. She was leaving. She was getting her babies and she was getting out of there. Think about that for a second. It's almost 0 inches the morning. You're at your boyfriend's mama's house. You got a 7-month-old and a 1-year-old. And you decide, nah, I'm out. I'm taking my kids and I'm leaving right now. That tells you something about how that argument was going. That tells you she felt like she needed to go, right then. Not in the morning. Not after everybody calmed down. Now. So Nevea gathers her 2 sons. Can you imagine trying to get a baby and a toddler together in the middle of the night while you're upset, while you're angry, while you're probably scared? She's moving toward that door. She's trying to leave, but she doesn't make it. So Nevea is heading for the door with her 2 babies. And according to Kanye Smith's mother, who was right there in the apartment watching all of this go down, Nevea charged at her son with a knife. A knife. Now, let's pause here for a second, because this is important. This is what his mama said happened. Nevea, who's trying to leave with her children, supposedly turned around and charged at Kanye with a knife. That's the story. That's what his mother told the detectives when they sat down with her at Newport News Police Headquarters. But here's the thing. Nevea was leaving. She had her babies. She was moving toward that door. So what happened between "I'm getting out of here" and she charged at him with a knife? What changed? What was said? What was done? We don't know. We weren't in that apartment. But what we do know is this. A 19-year-old woman with a 7-month-old and a 1-year-old in the middle of the night is trying to walk out the door. And somehow, according to his mother, she became the aggressor. She became the threat. She came at him. Moving on. According to Kanye's mother, after Nevea supposedly charged at him with that knife, she heard a gunshot. Just one. And then she saw Nevea fall to the floor, right there. And then she watched her son, Kanye Smith, run out of the apartment with a gun. He didn't check on Nevea. He didn't call 911. He didn't try to help. He ran. Gun in hand, out the door, gone. The call came in at 1:35 inches the morning. Reports of a shooting at the Brennan Point Apartments on Warwick Boulevard. Officers from the Newport News Police Department responded, and when they arrived at that apartment complex, they found Nevea Harris in the doorway. Not inside the apartment, not in the hallway. In the doorway, she had a gunshot wound. The Newport News Fire Department medics got there. They tried, but Nevea Harris was pronounced dead at the scene. She didn't make it. 19 years old. 2 babies who would never see their mother again. Dead in a doorway at 1:35 inches the morning. And Kanye Smith? He was gone. Nowhere to be found. Now, the police started working. Forensics teams showed up. They were out there in the cold that morning, taking photos, collecting evidence, trying to piece together what happened. Detectives started interviewing people. They talked to witnesses. They talked to anyone who might have heard something, seen something. And they talked to Kanye Smith's mother. She told them what I just told you. She said Nevea and Kanye had been arguing. She, said Nevea, tried to leave with her 2 sons. She said Nevea charged at Kanye with a knife. She said she heard a gunshot. She said she saw Nevea fall. She said she watched her son run out with a gun. But here's what's interesting. For 2 whole days, Kanye Smith didn't come forward. 2 days, while the police were investigating, while Nevea's family was grieving, while detectives were trying to figure out where he was and what happened, Kanye Smith was in the wind. Then, on November 13th, 2 days after Nevea was killed, Kanye Smith showed up. He walked into the Newport News Police Headquarters on his own, and he told detectives he wanted to give a statement. He agreed to speak with them. No lawyer present, as far as we know. He sat down and he told them his version of what happened. And his version? It's a whole different story. Kanye told the detectives that he was fighting with Nevea. He said she was threatening him with a knife. But then he said it was Nevea who grabbed the gun. Not him, her. He said Nevea grabbed the gun. And he said he was trying to take the gun away from her. He said his finger was on the trigger. And he said the gun went off accidentally. He said he accidentally shot her. And then he ran. An accident. That's what he called it. an accident. So let me get this straight. Nevea is threatening you with a knife. Then she grabs a gun. You're trying to take the gun from her. Your finger is on the trigger. The gun goes off. You shoot her, accidentally. And then you run out of the apartment, gun in hand, and you don't come back for 2 days. Like, make it make sense. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The detectives, they listened to his story. They took notes. They let him talk. And then they did what detectives do. They looked at the evidence. They looked at Nevea's wounds. They examined how she was shot, where she was shot, the trajectory, the forensics, all of it. And you know what they found? Kanye's story was inconsistent with Nevea's wounds. That's what the court documents say. His account of what happened did not match up with the physical evidence. The way he said it happened, that's not what Nevea's body was showing them. So now the police have a problem. They have a dead 18-year-old woman. They have a man who ran from the scene with a gun. They have a man who waited 2 days to tell his side. They have a story that doesn't match the evidence. And they have one more problem. The gun. The gun that killed Nevea Harris? They still haven't found it. Kanye ran out with it. And to this day, that gun has not been recovered. So the detectives have Kanye Smith sitting in front of them. They have his statement. They have his mother's statement. They have the forensics. And they have Nevea Harris's body telling a completely different story than what Kanye is saying. When you're investigating a shooting, the wounds tell you everything. The angle of entry, the distance the gun was fired from, the trajectory of the bullet. All of that tells you a story. And in this case, that story wasn't matching what Kanye Smith was claiming. He said they were struggling over the gun. He said his finger was on the trigger. He said it went off accidentally while he was trying to take it from her. But the physical evidence? It wasn't supporting that. The detectives saw that, and they made note of it in their reports. His account was inconsistent based on the wounds. Now, the police still had work to do. They were trying to recover that gun. They were interviewing more people. They were going through the apartment, collecting evidence, building their case. Because at the end of the day, they had to prove what really happened in that apartment. And here's what they knew for sure. Nevea Harris had been in a relationship with Kanye Smith. Back in April, he was arrested for domestic assault against her. That's documented. That's on record. So there's a history of violence. There's a pattern. And now, 7 months later, Nevea is dead, shot in his mother's apartment while trying to leave with her children. The pieces were coming together, and none of them were looking good for Kanye Smith.
We're learning more about the death of a 19-year-old.
Newport News police say Nevea Harris died last Tuesday, shot to death in an apartment on Warwick Boulevard. Court documents show what police say led up to Harris's death. These are the Brennan Point Apartments in Newport News. It's the address where court records show 19-year-old Nevea Harris was shot. Newport News Juvenile and Domestic Relations court records show 21-year-old Kanye Smith is accused of Harris's death. A criminal complaint from Newport News police say they got a call on November 11th for reports of a shooting. Police say they found Harris in the doorway of the Brennan Point Apartments, and shortly after getting there, Newport News Fire Department medics said Harris passed away. After investigating, detectives found Harris and Smith were at Smith's mother's apartment, and in a sit-down interview at the Newport News Police headquarters, detectives say Smith's mother said Harris and her son had been arguing. The documents go on to say Harris tried to leave the apartment with her 2 sons, but before leaving, Smith's mother said Harris charged at her son with a knife. That's when documents say she heard a gunshot, saw Harris fall to the floor, and watched her son run out of the apartment with a gun. 2 days later, on November 13th, Kanye Smith showed up to the Newport News Police headquarters to give a statement. The documents say he agreed to speak with detectives. Smith told detectives he was fighting with Harris, she was threatening him with a knife, and that it was Harris who grabbed the gun. Smith alleges he was trying to take the gun from Harris and had his finger on the trigger and accidentally shot her before running off. But detectives say that's inconsistent based on Harris's wounds. The documents say police still haven't recovered the gun in this case.
Kanye Smith was also arrested for a domestic assault back in April of this year against Harris. We also asked him for an interview, but he declined. Smith is set to appear in Newport News court on January 29th.
Kanye Smith was arrested and charged. Second-degree murder. That was the main charge. But there were other charges too. The exact details of all the charges weren't fully laid out in the news coverage, but we know second-degree murder was the big one. Second-degree murder means the prosecution believes he intentionally killed her, but it wasn't premeditated. It wasn't planned out. It happened in the moment. In the heat of whatever was going on in that apartment, and based on everything the detectives found, based on the inconsistencies in his story, based on the wounds on Nevea's body, they felt they had enough to charge him with murder. Kanye Smith was held behind bars, no bond mentioned in the reports, and he was set to appear in Newport News Court on January 29th for his hearing. Now, when the media reached out to Kanye Smith for an interview, for his side of the story beyond that police statement, you know what he did? He declined. He didn't want to talk. He had nothing more to say. And honestly, that's probably what his lawyer told him to do. Don't say anything else. Don't make it worse. Because what he already said, it wasn't helping him. The legal process was just beginning, but the damage was already done. Nevea Harris was gone. Her two sons were without their mother, and Kanye Smith was sitting in a cell facing a second-degree murder charge.
We begin in Newport News. On Tuesday morning, Nevea Harris was killed at an apartment complex on Warwick Boulevard. She was just 19 years old. According to Newport News police, detectives quickly identified 21-year-old Kanye Smith as a suspect. He remains behind bars and faces several charges, including second-degree murder. Today, the victim's family held a vigil. 10 on your side, Ethan Kraus is live there at the scene right now. Hey, Ethan.
Yes, good evening, Karina, and that's right. A vigil is currently being held here for 19-year-old Nevea Harris, who was shot and killed in an apartment complex off Warwick Boulevard in Newport News earlier this week. Now, according to the Newport News Police Department, they have confirmed that they've arrested the suspect in this case, 21-year-old Kanye Smith, who is pictured on your screen. Smith is charged with second-degree murder, among other charges. Today, family, friends, and community members have all gathered here at Briarfield Park to remember and honor Nevea, who one family member tells us was the mother of two young children.
Just remember her, you know, she used to call me Auntie Carly, and I just hear her voice every day. One thing I always remember about Nevea was just her sweet, caring nature. There was an innocence about her. She does have two very young children. She has a 7-month-old son as well as a 2-year-old son, and they're going to need all the support that they can get from the family.
Now, Carly tells us that her, as well as everybody else that is here today, are going to continue to honor and remember Nevea for who she was, as well as seek justice for her going forward. Live in Newport News, Ethan Kraus, 10 on your side.
On the day after Nevea's death, her family, her friends, and members of the community gathered at Briarfield Park in Newport News. They held a vigil. They came together to remember her, to honor her, to say her name. People who loved Nevea stood up and talked about who she was. They talked about her sweet, caring nature. They talked about that innocence she had. They talked about her voice, the way she sounded when she came to visit, the little things that made her who she was. And they talked about her two sons, a 7-month-old and a 1-year-old. Two babies who would grow up without their mother. Two babies who would need all the support and love that the family could give them. One family member said it best. Those boys are going to need all the support they can get from the family, because that's what's left behind when domestic violence takes a life. It's not just the person who's gone. It's the children. It's the family. It's the community. It's everyone who has to pick up the pieces and try to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. Nevea Harris was 19 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She was a mother. She was a daughter. She was a friend. She was someone's family. And on November 11th, in the early morning hours, she tried to walk out of an apartment with her 2 sons. She made it to the doorway, and that's where her life ended. The courts will decide what happens to Kanye Smith. The legal system will run its course. But for Nevea's family, for her 2 boys, there's no verdict that brings her back. There's no sentence that fills the hole she left behind. This is the reality of domestic violence. It doesn't just hurt, it kills. And it leaves behind children who will grow up asking questions about their mother. Children who will only know her through stories and pictures and the memories that other people share with them. Nevea Harris. Say her name. Remember her. And remember that when someone tries to leave, that's when they're in the most danger. That's when they need the most support. That's when we can't look away. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe to Grave Kisses TV. We're here telling the stories that need to be told, honoring the lives that were taken too soon. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. And if you know someone who needs to hear these stories, share this video. We'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.